All right, welcome to Sooner Surge Game Time, the first episode of a new series we're going to be doing that will be releasing on Fridays. Just me and Jackson tonight, so we'll get you kind of started. But before we do, hit the subscribe button. As always, appreciate it for the subscriptions, you guys joining. It's awesome to be part of this community. We appreciate it. And like and comment as well on this video. We'll ask a few questions on this and just put your comments down below. So, first game tomorrow, week 1. I'm pumped, ready for the scene center from Toby Rowland. BB had his press earlier this week. Nobody asked one question about Arkansas State. And so we had somebody from Arkansas State on earlier this week. I encourage you to go watch the video. Kara Ritchie, she will give you some kind of things to look for from Arkansas State. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on Arkansas State because let's be flat out honest. This game should be a pretty easy victory for OU. If not, it's going to be a long year. But instead of, usually we're going to do keys to the game. But I think maybe this week, either keys to the game or what you're watching for in week 1, Jackson.
Yeah. Well, I would say the first thing I'm watching for. But before I say that, man, Jason, OU Team 129's here. Football season's back. I'm pumped, as you said. Cannot wait. It's been a long offseason, a lot of roster turnover in a good way for Oklahoma. Added some much needed help on both sides of the ball. I'm excited. But, the first thing I'm watching for, this may sound like the obvious statement, but that's just how Dillon Gabriel plays, We've heard the hype over the offseason. He's improved. He looks different, right? We saw a different Dillon Gabriel in the Florida State game, right? That was the best Dillon Gabriel we saw all year. The fire, the intensity, the consistency we saw from start to finish with Dillon Gabriel, and that game was what we need to see from him all this year. But I'm looking forward to see, one, it's maybe a small but minor thing, how his footwork has changed, because that caused a lot of his overthrows last year, right? It was pointed out versus Nebraska on the TV broadcast. I know Robert Griffin pointed it out versus TCU too. Just his footwork was off last year, to see if he can correct those overthrows. And also maybe how much more aggressive we see him forcing the ball to his receivers in 50-50 balls this year. I also look to see that when you look at the sides like Jaden Gibson and Nick Anderson, or the deep threats and Gavin Freeman, Jaquez Petaway, and Andrew Anthony, right? So there's a lot to watch for Dillon Gabriel.
Yeah, and I think what I'm looking for, two things. One, I am very curious to see offensively how fast they go. Last year, that was like the big offseason talk because it was a new thing. It wasn't Lincoln Riley's offense. But this year, you haven't heard as much about it. So I think it might be, maybe it'll be a little more situational. Maybe they will just go, like they did last year. And also the game clock is a little different this year, the new rule change. And I've watched a few of the games, and it's interesting now, with that first down, the clock doesn't stop like it always does before. So that'll be interesting. The other thing is defensively. This team, it's not going to be much of a challenge for OU defensively. They should be able to hold this team pretty well. But what I'm looking for is not really score-wise. It's to me, it's more alignment. It's more, are they in the right spots? Are there any blown coverages, blown mistakes? Are they, last year I felt like sometimes they would have problems at setting edges, just stuff that was kind of, and it was because they were learning that offense. It was so new. So I'm interested to see how fast they are this year because it's not a new defense. That's kind of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and to speak to just how fast the offense goes, I think at last year there was points where that fast-paced offense hurt them, right? Because they were going too fast when they had no rhythm. It was just wasted 30, 45-second drives that the defense got no chance to rest. And part of that was due to because they really didn't have a lot of depth to give teams different looks last year. Now offensively, at wide receiver, there's 7 or 8 or maybe even 9 guys I expect to see the first week of the season play, right? Just to mix and match different guys, different maybe a different rotation from what we're expecting, right? Because the top 3 receivers are expected to be Andrew Anthony, Jalil Farouk, and Drake Stoops, according to the depth chart. But I would not be shocked if we see a guy like Gavin Freeman maybe get more snaps than maybe a Drake Stoops. Not due to the fact that just because Drake Stoops had a bad camp or anything, but because Gavin Freeman, he's earned that playing time, earned that right. And also, I also looked for the conditioning part for the offensive line up front, right?
Yeah.
The Schmitty built this offseason. We've heard they're more in tune with the term Schmitty built, right? Whether that's their strength, how conditioned they are, because Jerry Schmidt historically has been the best of the best in all of college football, strength-wise, especially for the offensive and defensive linemen. So, and I just also want to see how the offensive line can push Arkansas State around as the game goes on. Because it's going to be by the third quarter, it's going to be over 100 degrees on that field. It's going to be a hot day. So to see how the offensive line can hold up maybe in the second and third quarters as the first and second string get rotated in.
Well, that to me, when you play games like this, these first few games, that kind of usually stands out to me is, and there's been games in the years past where, after the first game, you're like, man, the O-line wasn't really blowing people off the ball, or the defensive line wasn't really getting in the backfield. Against teams like this, you should be mauling people in that, like, up front physically, right? I mean, this should be, and we should see it game one, I think. And I think we will. I think this team's more physical. I think they're, Brent Venables in his press conference said they were a little soft last year. Said that. So I think you're going to see a lot more physical team. I'm excited to see guys like Pearson out there just laying the boom, dropping the wood. I'm excited to see some of these youngsters we haven't seen. So, Jackson, let's move on to the next segment, matchup nightmares. This week, I think matchup nightmare to me is going to be, I'm interested to see Tawee Walker and Marcus Major, okay, on the running back. Just because, we know what Major can give you when he's healthy, but we do not know what Tawee Walker can give you because we haven't really seen it. So I'm interested to see how physical of a runner he is. I heard Trace Ford on the Morning Animal say the guy is the hardest guy to tackle. He's just extremely hard to tackle. And what was very interesting is Trace Ford said, he came into OU and he didn't really have an idea of who all the running backs were, right? Because he wasn't there last year. So he didn't really know Barnes or Sawchuk or Walker. He kind of knew a little bit of Major because he's been there a while. But he said just from his showing up and being there, he thought Walker was just a stud. Like he's that good in practice. And he was like, man, he earned that role for this first week. So I'm excited to see him. I'm really in to see how he does. Obviously, to me, I think later on the year, he's not going to be day one starter, but I think he is going to give you some stuff this year for sure.
Yeah, and I think with Tawee Walker, right, if this is an Oklahoma defense, whether it's guys like Trace Ford or Danny Stutzman saying he's so difficult to tackle, right, in the open field because he's so physical, he's so big. I don't remember if it was Brent Venables or Jeff Levy that compared him to a bowling ball, though, because he just rolls forward constantly. He's always falling forward, doing all this. So I think that Tawee Walker should have no problem against this Arkansas State linebacker and secondary core whenever it gets up to the second and third levels, and they have to try to tackle him in the open field. And also, I really look forward to my matchup nightmare is the interior of Oklahoma's defensive line versus the interior of Arkansas State's offensive line. Because Arkansas State should not be able to push guys like Isaiah Coe and
and they have 3 transfer portal guys on the line.
Yeah, and Jordan Kelly off the ball still. Like these guys, I'm not saying they're bad players, but they were second and third string players at Ole Miss for a reason, right? Because they just maybe weren't just as good as the other guys, and they need to go to a place like Arkansas State to get on the field. But, I think that no matter what, Oklahoma's interior defensive line should have no issue all day. And also, I look forward to watching the interior defensive line potentially wreak havoc. And by that, I mean, we saw them, what was it, last year in the first 3 weeks? They were way ahead in the country by TFLs. I mean, they were up by 5 or 6 at least TFLs in the country because the interior of the defensive line was just dominating people all day. So I look forward to seeing that. And also, can the defensive end set the edge consistently? I think that's a great point you made. Because last year, no one outside of Ethan Downs could set the edge very well at all.
I think it was just more they were thinking too much,
Yeah, exactly. And now that leads to the comfortability aspect for this team, right? Because the everyone is going to be on the same page, and that all is going to start with Danny Stutzman, right? He's going to be calling out the defense, him and Jaron Kanek. They're going to be getting guys in order. Players this year are actually going to know what to do, and they're going to be able to just read and react instead of just thinking.
Oh, yeah, for sure, man. I'm excited. Jackson, if you had to pick a Sooner standout for this week, who's it going to be?
Ooh. On
One
which
guy that you think is just going to be maybe you could say Sooner standout. You could say player of the game. I mean, who's it going to be?
Okay, I'll pick one for each side of the ball. How about that?
Okay.
My offensive Sooner standout. I think this is the most underrated storyline of the game. I don't think this is getting talked about enough. I have not seen any headline story about this at all. Austin Stogner is returning to Norman. I think Austin Stogner, we're going to see him have a similar week to what we saw Braden Willis have in week one. Maybe that's not that he's just going to have 100 yards, right? But you're going to see his impact made in the run game. He's going to catch 1 or 2 touchdowns, and people are really just going to get back and used to seeing that old Stog. Now, it's going to be weird seeing him be number 81. That still may take some adjusting to get to because I'm always used to him being number 18. But, I think Stogner is going to be my offensive Sooner standout because, right, you expect guys like Jaleel Farouk and Andrew Anthony to have these days of where it's really easy for him compared going against the Arkansas State secondary, but I think Stogner, he's just really going to show why he's tied in one in this room and that there's not much worrisome to be placed with having to replace Braden Willis. And defensively, I think my Sooner standout is actually a newcomer. Okay, no, it's not a newcomer, but he's like a newcomer in a sense in which he hasn't got his opportunity to show what has been done yet. And he's been the storyline mainly on the defense throughout all of fall camp. I think you know who I'm going to say in Justin Harrington, okay? I think Harrington is going to have himself a day in which he is going to show why he's earned that starting cheetah spot. Okay, while the hype around Harrington has been real. With him, it's just been that he get it all together mentally. We know physically he has it all. And I actually think Justin Harrington is going to have a pick 6 for a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm going to go offensively. I'm going to go Andrew Anthony. We saw he's maybe going to start possibly on that depth chart, but I think he's going to be a guy that gets behind the defense at least once, maybe twice. I think he's going to have a big game. And then defensively, I'm going to go, man, it's hard. Multiple guys could have huge games, but I'm going to go with Kanek. I think Kanek, I think him being on the field more this year, he's going to show up. Like, you're going to see him, and you're going to be like, man, he's everywhere. Because if you remember when he did get on the field last year and he didn't really know a whole lot of what he was doing, he's kind of a ball hawk. I mean, he's wherever that ball, he was there. So I think both linebackers for sure will have great games, and whoever they play, probably linebacker. I think the way the defensive line is built, that they're going to be more free. The linebackers are because they're going to line up a lot of the blocks, and they're going to be free flowing in there. So, I'll go with Kanek. So, I mean, obviously, we both think this is going to be pretty dominant performance by OU. I mean, if I had to pick a score, I would probably say somewhere around 59 to 6, something like that, if I had to pick.
Yeah. Well, for me, I've been between like 49 and 55 to 10 to 13. I've been thinking a lot of different options, but I think I'll go Oklahoma at 55, Arkansas State at 10. I don't think Arkansas State really, they don't have much of a chance. Now, if they can come in with Butch Jones and shock the world, I mean, all credit goes to them, but I cannot imagine the reaction from Oklahoma fans. Like, oof.
If what?
If somehow OU lost to Arkansas State, it's not
Oh my gosh, dude, you're killing me, man.
It's not going to happen. What?
Huh? If they lose to Arkansas State,
it's not going to happen. But I'm just saying,
no way it's going to happen.
Yeah. No.
If this game's not 30 to 40 point win, I'd be a little concerned if I'm OU. Right?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I mean, this is your first chance to play somebody other than
yourself.
And I mean, I watched a little bit of TU last night, and TU out of the gate struggled like crazy with turnover, and they're down 7-0, and you're thinking, oh gosh, this could be a game, and then you look up and they won 42-7 or whatever. So I think OU could struggle in this game and still going to win by 30, 40 points.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about college football in general this weekend. There's some good games. I mean, you got North Carolina, South Carolina. You got, I think, is it LSU, Florida State, I believe. Hope it's better than last year's game. I mean, last year's game was kind of, remember that crazy ending.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to remember that's probably the two best games, I think.
Yeah. I look at those two games as really like the week one potential implications on the college football playoff race in a way, right? Because LSU and Florida State, right? LSU has the potential, if everything goes together, to be in the SEC championship game, maybe competing against Georgia, right? Because I think we all expect Georgia really to win the SEC again. I don't think there's much thought with that. Now, I think Alabama.
I'm not picking Georgia.
Really, you're not? Wow. Well, that's crazy. But I think that LSU, they're going to be a solid team led by Jaden Daniels, obviously. They have one of the best defensive players in the country in Harold Perkins, who was a true freshman last year. That kid, if you have not watched him play, if you want to watch someone that's really fun to watch play on defense, go watch him play. He just plays the game at such a high energy. He was a 5-star career coming out of high school. And obviously, Florida State, I mean, they're led by Jordan Travis and Mike Norvell. It's a really loaded team. They have Johnny Wilson.
Jordan Travis a lot of people are picking him for Heisman.
Yeah, Keon Coleman transferred there from Michigan State. He was Michigan State's number one receiver last year.
Yeah, they're good. They got a good squad. I mean,
they do.
Those are both that game, and then the North Carolina, South Carolina. Obviously, I'm pulling for Beamer on that one. But the game I'm really intrigued to watch out of all the games, the most intrigued game I think is going to be TCU Colorado.
Yep.
And it's a lot of things. Is TCU, were they a fluke last year, or are they for real again? Are they going to be really good again? And then also Colorado. I mean,
the Deion Sanders, man, it's the story of all
Sanders effect. Are you rooting for him or against him?
I'm rooting for Deion Sanders in week one.
Are you?
Yeah.
Listen, I'm a huge Deion Sanders fan. I mean, I'm a big Cowboys fan. Deion was one of my favorite players. But I will have to say some stuff lately that I've seen him talk about, and some just all the stuff I've seen some of their players doing. It's just like, I don't know. I kind of want them to not be great. I just kind of, I don't know. You saw.
Yeah, well, it's like
about Deion Sanders about the Florida State question.
Yeah, how we said he didn't graduate from there.
He's not. He basically said he's not a Florida State guy, but. He was just making a big deal out of that. But I don't know. I would – it's going to be interesting to see if what they're doing is going to work, because they lost so many players and they ran so many players off that now they got this new squad in. They have some talent. I mean, let's face it. And we all know Deion Sanders is a great recruiter. He can recruit. But can his coaching from the level he was at, will it translate to – Power 5 football? And we'll see. It might. I mean, he might be great and they might turn around. To me, though, a turnaround season for them is going to be about 5 or 6 wins, because they just were so bad last year and they lost so it'll be interesting to see. I'd love for the viewers to comment. Are you rooting for Deion Sanders in Colorado to be really good, or do you kind of want to see that situation not be great? I don't know. I'm kind of torn. Torn on that.
Well, for me, I'm going to go back to the South Carolina and North Carolina game, right? Obviously, South Carolina is led by Spencer Rattler. OU fans have mixed opinions on him. I've always been a guy that's rooted for Spencer Rattler. I want to see him succeed this year, because, he gets flamed, and OU fans don't like him, obviously, because he lost his starting job to Caleb Williams, and he transferred out, and Caleb Williams transferred out. That's part of the reason why some people don't like his personality. What?
I don't think OU fans don't like Spencer.
Well, there's some on social media that have that.
Well, there's some, but I think a lot of people like him.
Yeah. I've rooted for Spencer Rattler personally, and actually, I think I'll go ahead and say this as my week 1 Sooner Surge Game Time hot take for something non-OU related. Spencer Rattler will finish top 3 in Heisman voting.
Hey, you know,
I
I've
think,
I've heard some things about him this offseason from
and
scouts and stuff.
their
They
offensive
say
coordinator talked him up very high.
they saying he's looking unreal. So we'll see. But that game, you have him versus Drake May. I
Drake
mean,
is a great QB.
think about those two games. LSU, Florida State. You got Daniels and
Jordan Travis.
Travis, and then North Carolina, South Carolina. You got Drake May and Spencer Rattler. Those two quarterback matchups are some of the best you're going to see all year.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
those.
and
Yeah,
and the nice thing is they both aren't on a Saturday night, right?
yeah.
One's on a Saturday night, the other's on a Sunday night. So
And my upset special is actually from one of those games.
okay, who's your upset special? Go ahead and say.
South Carolina will beat North Carolina.
Mm.
I was kind of shocked, honestly. North Carolina is ranked like 21st, I believe, something like that, right? South Carolina is not even ranked. I was kind of, I think South Carolina is going to beat them, even though that's not a major upset. The other game I'm going to tell you that I think is going to be closer than people say, and this one's going to
Clemson.
What? No,
Oh,
it's Indiana, Ohio State. Sometimes when you play a conference opponent the first week, I think sometimes it can be kind of like a catch-22. And I'm not saying Indiana's going to win, but I am saying that I think that will be a closer game than people think. And you got to remember, Ohio State's starting a new quarterback, okay? A new quarterback. So to me, it's their first game. It's a conference opponent. I believe it's at Indiana. Look for that one to be closer than you people think.
well, for my upset special, let me go ahead and slide on the shades like prime time, man.
Oh,
I got
wow.
Colorado week 1. I think Deion
Wow.
Sanders, they are going to shock the world in week 1, okay? Deion Sanders, what has he always said? We coming. We coming. He preaches that to his team. We coming. Now, he may say controversial stuff or anything, but some of the stuff he does is pretty entertaining to the college football world. I think Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter and Deion Sanders are going to walk in there to Dallas-Fort Worth week 1 and upset the TCU Horned Frogs, man. I just, something tells me that Deion Sanders is the kind of matchup in which we see either it's a massive success or it's a flop. There's no in between. And I think this is the kind of matchup where we're going to see Deion Sanders have just massive success against TCU. And actually, I think they'll win by 10+ points.
Nice. Well, guys, drop in the comments. I have two things for you. The score of the OU game. Put your score prediction in there. Love to see that from you. Also, the game of the week is TCU Colorado. That's what we're going with on Sooner Surge Game Time. And drop your comments on who you think is going to win that game. Jackson has Colorado. I got TCU. Drop your comments in there for the game of the week. Future 2 Big 12 schools, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. But, guys, I'm just so ready for tomorrow.
Me too.
Here, going to wake up early in the morning. Scenes headed from Toby Rowland. 11 o'clock kickoff. We got tailgating on Lindsay. We got the Sooner Walk on Lindsay Street. It's going to be a great day. No rain in the forecast. Not as hot as they earlier predicted, so that's good. It's just it's time, guys. It's time for Palace on the Prairie to be lit tomorrow. So, hey, subscribe to the channel. Let's have a good weekend, guys. Boomer.
Boomer.